Things just got worse and worse and worse as the night went on. Again, valiant effort down the stretch for the Bucks. Just too little, too late. Let's go down and let's see what Coach Fletch and the rest of the crew has to say. As always, go Bulls. So let's head into the locker room right now and see what the guys have to say about that one. Wow. Where do the Buccaneers go from here? What an incredible atmosphere. What a good win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They snapped a 7-game winning streak. How we feeling, Bucs Nation? It's time to party, baby.
The great thing about the Recher podcast is that we are live on location here at Amalie Arena ahead of the game tonight between the Lightning and the Chicago Blackhawks. A big thank you. Hold on, let me fix my thing here. There you go. Big thank you to the Tampa Bay Lightning for being able to put me up in one of the lounges here. I cannot thank them enough, and this is great to be able to know that I can do some morning skate stuff here at Amalie Arena and still be with you right here on the Recher podcast. Hopefully, we're going to continue to do that as the year goes on. Always want to hear from you. Questions, comments, concerns, leave them there at the bottom. You know we are jacked up and ready to go. Best guest on the program in the Bay Area. It doesn't get better than this. I want to hear from you. Where are you watching the Recher podcast from today? Feel free to leave a comment there. Follow me on all social media platforms. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. I am everywhere. And then also like and subscribe on YouTube because we have over 1,000 subscribers now on YouTube. My goal by the end of January was 1,000 subscribers, and that is what I was able to do. And it's all because of you out there. Continue to share, continue to like. Thank you all so very much. You know, we like to start out the show showing you some love. Russell Welch, Hammer Time, what up, Jay? TGL last night was awesome. Classic Tiger versus Rory. I was just talking about that with Nick Perbix from the Tampa Bay Lightning. Big golfer. His name is Nicklaus, like Jack Nicklaus, Nicklaus, because his dad was a big golfer. So we were talking and he watched it last night. He loved it. So freaking cool. Big Dummy Dan, howdy Jay? Hope you're having another great week. I am, Dan. I hope you are as well. Chip Clark coming in with the Duval. Did you see the video I posted? This is another reason why you want to follow me on social media. I made a video yesterday of Liam Cohen saying Duval and this guy that's been posting videos as of late, and he is hilarious. He's got like the haircut, the little Caesar. He combs it down. Every little spike in his hair is perfect. It is so freaking funny. You have to go check that out. Check out our guy, David Terry and Dolan, Chris Meeks, T-Bay Midday. Let's see them kicks. All right. This is what happens when you're on the Recher podcast. You don't have to wait till the Recher's rapid reaction to see the kicks. This is what we're working with tonight. The gold joints. Look at those babies sparkle. Badass, huh? We'll take it. We will take it. Thank you very much, Janet Best. I listen while I drive and work. You are the greatest. And I told you guys, I've been working on an article for the Tampa Bay Lightning's team website, and it's about Ryan McDonough. And being able to speak to a bunch of different. Yesterday, I spoke to Julian Breezebaugh. Today, I was able to speak to Brian Engblom and Eric Chernak and Victor Hedman as well. And tonight, after the game, hopefully, going to talk to Pat Maroon. And I was just talking to the head PR person for the Chicago Blackhawks, and I forgot to put in my name when I was like, "Hey, can I talk to Pat?" She was like, "Yeah," and she reached back out. She's like, who is this? I was like, my bad. And I was just like, oh, Recher, formerly of iHeart. Just tell him the guy with the crazy shoes. And, you know, even if Pat doesn't remember my name, he should remember the shoes. So that's my reputation has preceded me, I guess. Dolan, I'm with you, buddy. Funny how Liam Cohen talked about honesty in his press conference. We're going to hear from the Jacksonville side. Later on today, Rick Ballou is going to join us, 1010XL from up there in Jacksonville. He's going to be driving all around Duval, but he's going to join us at 1:30 today. Check out our guest that we have on the program today. At 12:10, we were supposed to chat with him last week a couple times, but we just couldn't get on the same page. Our guy, Chris Russell from the Team 980 up there in D.C. What was it like watching Jayden Daniels and the Commanders do their thing? One win away from reaching the Super Bowl. Chris Russell joins us at 12:10. The latest with our Tampa Bay Rays and the stadium saga. Stu Sternberg spoke to guess who? Our good pal Colleen Wright from the Tampa Bay Times. She joins us at 12:45. College baseball, it's back. Friday night at the Birdcage, right there in South Tampa, the University of Tampa. They start their trek to try to repeat after winning the national championship last year. El Jefe, the head baseball coach, the one and only Joe Urso, joins us at 1:05 today to tell us how the team's looking and what they have to do to try to go belly to belly and back to back there in Division II. And then I mentioned Rick Ballou from 1010 XL at 1:30 today. I am live right here at Amalie Arena ahead of the matchup tonight between the Tampa Bay Lightning and Chicago Blackhawks. And one of the big bits of news that came out here just in the last hour or so was Nikita Kucherov taking a hard fall, goes off the ice, goes down the tunnel, and he never came back. He was followed by the trainers. Now, John Cooper did it, and I didn't get a chance to be in the John Cooper press conference because I was talking to JJ Moser and Victor Hedman and Tom Mulligan, the trainer. But from Cooper's mouth, he says that Cooch should be okay. Now, and obviously this is a little bit of kind of reading between the lines here, but usually if there's a big injury or something, like everybody's very tight-lipped, everybody's kind of like walking on eggshells a little bit, but just, not reading too much into it, but just the information that I was getting and just kind of being around people, it doesn't seem like anybody's overly concerned that this is going to be a injury that's going to keep him out of the game tonight. They could be playing very well. They could be establishing some really good poker faces, so we don't know, but we'll find out a little bit later. But I'll be very surprised if Nikita Kucherov is not in the lineup tonight at Amalie Arena. So we shall see. Lady Evil, Duval, so cringing. It was all around pretty embarrassing, like he ever heard about Duval. I know. And I know people out there, you look at that, but I should play this, right? Let's see it. Let's bring this up. Let's see if I can. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to bring up the video that I made yesterday, and let's see if you guys like it or not. I'm sure you will, because you guys are awesome. All right, here we go. This is the people were wondering about Liam Cohen. People are wondering. I'm going to bring this up. Share screen. Remember the last time. Share. Boom. We're going to bring it up for you guys. Here we go. Let's see if you guys can hear this. Can you see it? There we go. All right. This is the video I made yesterday. Check this out.
Duval.
I can't hear it on my end.
Just got back from getting that Caesar cut, and it's looking good.
Duval.
It only cost me 2 packs of cigarettes. Told my sister, do it right here, and I'm telling you,
Duval.
I cannot be liable for what's gonna happen when I hit these streets. And I know what you're thinking. How does he keep it that clean? I'm not telling nobody, boy.
Duval.
Even though it's always so wet on my Caesar, and this cold air be mixing on my scalp, making it real cold. I know your girl's always gonna keep me warm.
Duval.
Cops gonna be like, nah, man, that dude, he ain't gonna do no crime. His hair too fire, man. He too clean to be doing any type of criminal activity. Not knowing.
Duval.
Yeah. Come on. That's one of the funniest things I've done in my life, baby. Oh my God. And people were hating. All right. It is what it is. Like that. Listen, I had fun with it, and we got to have more fun, right? That's one thing that I promised to do when I started doing this podcast is I having more fun. That is the most that's one of the most important things for me. Got to have fun. Yeah, about information, but entertainment as well. But to be able to see Liam Cohen yesterday with the Duval, like they were crushing this dude on social media. And we're having fun, right? We're having fun. It's not personal to the fact like we're attacking him or anything like that. And if you're a public figure, this is the kind of thing that's going to happen. So it is what it is. I thought I had some fun with it. So I appreciate everybody out there as well. Lady Evil, Dave, Terry, and Dolan, you guys are the best. But shout out to our guy, Rick Stroud from the Tampa Bay Times driving 4 hours up to Jacksonville to be a part of that press conference. That was just, you want to talk about guys going above and beyond to do the job right. And I say that a lot, and people ask me what the best part of my job is, and I don't ever say it's the games or the players. It's the people. It's the people that we work with. You know, how talented some of these guys and gals are. And I mean, just look at the Tampa Bay Lightning being a part of the fireside chat with Julian Breezeball yesterday, and them trusting me with writing an article for the Tampa Bay Lightning website, and having Chris Kren and Brian Breesman and everybody working to make sure that I have access to these players so I can write an article, a proper article about a guy like Ryan McDonough. Like, it's the people that are working in this industry, the people that work here in the Tampa Bay area, that they're the best, man. They're the best. You can't really compare them to anything else. And when you see people like I did today, Kaylee Chelios, so great to see Kaylee. And if you remember, she was the Lightning reporter for a while, and then she went up to Chicago, you know, Midwest girl with her dad being a Hall of Fame hockey player, went to Northwestern, her and her husband. She's got 3 little ones now. She's actually here traveling on the road because Darren Pang is actually doing the national TV side for TNT. So she's filling in, but to be able to see her, and I remember hanging out with her years ago at the All-Star game, just good, down-to-earth people, man. These are the kind of guys and gals that you want to surround yourself with. And I implore anybody to whatever aspect of your life, whether it's, you know, work, whether it's leisure, make sure you surround yourself with good people, right? It's not always about what you do. It's about who you do it with. And, you know, birds of a feather flock together. You're judged by the company you keep, and all those other cliches and adages that you've heard over the years. But it truly is. I mean, think about it, man. Life is short. So if you're going to be able to spend so much time working, you want to do it with good people. And this guy is one of the best. Let's go up to DC. Our guy, Chris Russell. Not many guys that I like better than him from the Team 980 up there in the nation's capital. What's up, my friend? How are you?
Look at you. I hope you can hear me, right? You can hear me, right?
We're good.
Okay. All right, good. Sorry, I'm running a bit late. Traffic was, as usual, just a mess getting here. You are, I mean, the man. I have never seen a more dapper broadcaster in my life, and a damn good one at that, and a really good guy, but dapper to the nines. I mean, if I looked like you, Jay, I would have no problems, and instead I've got a world full of problems. Look at those shoes.
The bad boys right here. The blue and, you know, got to mix. Yeah, the Ric Flair style.
I was going to say, those look like you stole them right off of Ric Flair's feet.
And you know what's funny is Ric Flair actually lives in the building right next to Amalie here. So there's a good chance as I walk to lunch that I might see Ric Flair a little bit later on today.
Nature boy.
Woo! And for those who don't know, and I don't know if I've ever told you this, somebody reached out to me one time, and they were like, hey, I need somebody in Tampa that can help establish Ric Flair's podcast room. So somehow somebody gave them my name, and I went to Ric Flair's apartment. And I went in there, and I walked in, and he's watching like old country western, spaghetti western movies, and sitting there eating his dinner. And he's like, yeah, just, you know, do whatever you want. And he tried to give me like $100 for helping set up his podcast room. I'm like, I'm not taking any money from you. And we like almost got into it. I was like, I'm not taking money from you, Rick. Like, you helped like my life, my childhood. Like, you're one of my favorite wrestlers of all time.
Oh,
and he got so mad. And then I went away. And then the next time I saw him, I was at the Buccaneers game, and he was 3 sheets to the wind, brother. And our buddy that was with him, Joe Gomez, was like, it's Jay, the podcast guy. He goes, the podcast guy. And I was like,
podcast guy.
If I'm known as the podcast guy to Ric Flair,
yeah,
I'm doing pretty good.
So I'll tell you a quick Ric Flair story.
Yeah.
I ran into him probably 4 times during WrestleMania weekend last year in Philadelphia, right?
Whoa.
He was... You want to talk about 3 sheets to the wind? Several times. And then the last time in the hotel, the WWE hotel, right? Because I had some access and whatever, and we were hanging out with some of the wrestlers and whatever. I mean, Rick's got to slow down a little bit. Rick's got to, you know, I mean, he had a near-death experience. We can't lose the Nature Boy with everything and everyone that we've lost and all the tragedies and stuff that we deal with in life. We can't lose the Nature Boy, man. But
I know
he's still enjoying life. I can tell you that much.
Listen, he goes to like bars and restaurants down here and orders from my friend's Italian restaurant and has the food shipped to other restaurants. So he'll eat like a pot of meatballs at somebody else's restaurant, but he tips everybody. He tips them well. So like the manager's not going to tell him no.
Right.
Did you guys,
Right.
I didn't mention this last time I was on, or you were on with me, or maybe I was on with you. Yeah, it was when I was on with you. Trick Williams was on the same show as I was, wasn't I?
That is correct.
That trick.
That is correct. I mean, you took main billing. Trick, we just kind of backed off and said, no. We got to have Jay on. He's much, no offense, he's much more important to you. He did not lose the NXT Heavyweight Championship like you did, Trick. So I'm going to turn the trick on you and put Jay ahead of you. So you were in the leadoff spot. Trick was just like in the 3-hole.
I appreciate that. Now, if Obafemi came on, the guy that took the title from him, then we'd have a different conversation. And I am definitely understanding of that. I have this thing, Chris, where he's huge. I have this thing where I don't know what it was, even though I've been a diehard sports fan my entire time. But I have this, like, I don't know if it's like part of me being an empath, but I love seeing my friends and my colleagues enjoying the journey of sports, especially fan bases that have gone through turmoil for decades. And I was living vicariously through you and all of your compatriots up there watching Jayden Daniels and the Commanders, of course, after the Buccaneers game, go into Detroit and win that game with the Lions. I actually picked them to pull off the upset because I didn't really trust what I saw from Jalen Hurts. Let's talk about that Detroit game first before we get into that. To be able to watch them do it again, Chris, it's one thing to watch them do it against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but to watch them go into the number 1 seed, the Detroit Lions, heavily favored. A lot of people picked them to go to the Super Bowl and win that game. What was it like watching that?
Well, being at Ford Field, and I don't know when the last time you were there, if you've ever been there.
I haven't.
Okay. So I covered the Super Bowl back 20 years ago there, and I've been to several regular season games when the Lions were really, really bad. And I thought it would be an absolute hornet's nest and the undoing of Jayden Daniels and the offensive line in his rookie week. Especially, remember, Jay, you play late Sunday night, you win in Tampa, which I know is not good for your audience. Then you come back and you're playing 6 nights later indoors against the 1 seed who's, fresh and ready to go. And the one chance you had was, hey, maybe the oil wouldn't be running through the engine because of the bye week that Detroit had, right? Maybe they'd be a little rusty. And I don't know if that played itself out exactly in my mind how I thought it would, but it did translate, I think, maybe to some degree to the turnovers. So you capitalize on really 4 legitimate turnovers, 5 total. And even though they were down 7-0, and even though they could have lost that game easily at times, to go in there and do what they did was just out of this world. Now, listen, with all due respect, beating Tampa was something I didn't think they would do. I thought they would lose a close game. But people around here, maybe a lot of fans, expected them to do that. So it didn't have the same feel. Right. It was good. It was a good feeling, but it didn't have the same feel as kicking the crap out of the Detroit Lions. And then, oh, bleep, we are 8 days away or 7 days away or whatever days away from playing in an NFC championship game against the team we just beat a couple of weeks ago. So I think what happened was maybe there was a little bit of a false sense of security, if that makes sense, right? In beating Detroit by 14 and then going to Philadelphia and forgetting that you had to play a really, really good game against Philadelphia. And in no way, shape, or form did they. They turned the ball over 4 times. They didn't play well defensively. They didn't do enough things on special teams, including a critical fumble that I think really spin the game around. And they just didn't do enough things right that they had done for the most part against Tampa and Detroit.
Yeah, they played flawless. And I think when you look at the first couple of weeks, it comes down to those fine margins. And the guy that made the least mistakes the first week of the playoffs was the youngest guy there, the rookie quarterback. Yeah. And just an incredible year. How would you surmise the overall season, regular season, postseason of one Jayden Daniels?
I mean, it's the best rookie season ever, and I don't think there's much debate on that. I mean, maybe you want to throw out, just for sake of recent comparison, C.J. Stroud, but I think it was better. Maybe you want to throw out Marino in, 83? That's a long time ago. Marino did not have the legs that Jayden Daniels had, and that's the interesting thing for me is that Jayden won 2 playoff games, or the Commanders won 2 playoff games. Jayden was obviously a big part of it. And then played in a third without his legs being a dominant factor. Now, they were always a threat. And, Cansey found out that on that 3rd and 2 at the 19, it late in that playoff game, right, how good his legs are. And the Eagles found that out on one drive on a little, sharp turn, 10-yard touchdown run in the third quarter that kind of sort of got the Commanders back into it on Sunday. But outside of that, he wasn't dominant or really explosive with his legs in the playoffs, but he was with his arm for the most part. And that's the thing that I think continues to strike me. And everybody said this coming out of LSU winning the Heisman. He's a thrower first and a runner second. And they were absolutely correct on that. Now, there were times that he was a runner first and a thrower second. I want him to be what he has been and what he was for the most part in these here playoffs. Thrower first, runner second. The other thing that I didn't know as much about him is how tireless of a worker he is. I mean, you work your ass off. I used to work my ass off. I don't want to say I've gone into cruise control, Jay, but I mean, maybe the 65 mile an hour cruise control equivalent. Later in my life, Jayden Daniels shows up. I think I told you this the last time, 4:45, 5 o'clock in the morning, every morning. He's there. He beats like coaches. He beats coaches sometimes to the facility, and it's translated and it's rubbed off to other teammates. Not all, but translated and rubbed off to other teammates. For a kid to have that kind of poise, that kind of work ethic, that kind of maturity. And then after the game on Sunday night, he cursed. For the first time that I remember him cursing in any press conference, he was pissed. And he was not that much happier yesterday when he met with the media again. A little more calmer. But to me, we haven't seen that kind of I don't know if would you call it a killer instinct or a fire, a brimstone and fire, kind of thing. So maybe that's the next evolution, is that Jayden goes from being cool as a cucumber to not a hothead, but somebody who visibly shows, hey man, I want this way more than you. I know he does, but for the first time, he kind of let the public in on that Sunday night.
I like that. He's going to go from being the Rock to like Kane, the Hellfire
Brimstone.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah, you see,
that's
you're
exactly
like me.
who I was thinking about when I said, yes, when I said that.
Somebody said something the other day about something with with the Liam Cohen situation. They were like, Liam Cohen, you know what Liam Cohen reminded me of? And before the person said it, I'm like, you're going to say something about wrestling. And the person was like, when Hulk Hogan at Bash at the Beach joined the NWO. And I go, I smile every single time. There's other people out there that attribute every little nuance that happens in life, but in sports, to something that happened in wrestling. It's the Montreal screw job. It's this, it's that.
Yeah, it's funny. I wasn't thinking Liam Cohen and Hulk Hogan, going Hollywood at the Bash at the Beach, but I was kind of thinking, who he sort of weirdly looks like that I thought of when I saw that video yesterday. And I have no idea why I did this, but Jack Swagger. You remember him?
God, yes, you are so right.
Right? I mean, I don't know why I thought.
The people. Oh, my God.
I don't know why I thought that, but I thought that.
No, you're not wrong. I'm watching that press conference yesterday, and I'm just like, there is a high school volleyball team missing an assistant coach. What is going on? What is your take on that? I'd love to hear other people's, because obviously we've been ad nauseum talking about this Liam Cohen situation. From what you know and just following the sport, what do you make of the whole Liam Cohen thing?
So, I mean, obviously it was a messy departure, but I think, what happens is he tries to do the right thing and says, I'm not going to work with Trent Baalke, right? I'm just going to go back where I'm comfortable. Baker, Todd Bowles, Tampa Bay, I've got it good there, get a raise, what have you. And then all of a sudden they do the unexpected, because it literally took not only other coaches turning them down, but then Liam Cohen, the guy they wanted, to walk away and say, nah, dog, that's not for me. And I can't blame him for that, right? I mean, like, I still can't figure out how Ben Johnson wants to work with the Chicago GM, Ryan Tolles, yeah.
Poles, yeah.
Right. I thought he would have his own guy, quite honestly. So Liam Cohen's like, I ain't working with this clown. Get lost. I'm not putting maybe the one chance I've got. So I understood. It looked messy. You got to answer your phone, brother. You can't ghost. I understood, though, him going back to Jacksonville when they did finally the unthinkable. And you tell me everything I've heard about Liam Cohen, and I know Sean McVay, fairly well. We don't talk as much as we used to. Sean always had a very high opinion of him, and I know he bounced back and forth between Kentucky and the Rams and then to the Bucs, right? And I would say this: everything that I've always heard about Liam Cohen, he's going to be a stud. Now, if he's got kind of a goofy personality, sometimes that works, and sometimes that rubs a lot of people the wrong way. So he's got to straddle that fence.
Yeah, and I wonder too, because I did hear some stuff not in the beginning or the middle of the season, but towards the end of the season about, like, maybe, I don't want to say rubbing people in the wrong way. Maybe that's a little bit too strong, but especially after he left, there's some people like, not really. Your message can't be shaky at all, right? That's the one thing, and you know this with Todd Bowles. You may think Todd Bowles is a bad coach. You may think he's a horrible game manager. But Chris, that guy is a steady Eddie as they come. He is not a good man. He is a great man. He's respected around the National Football League. And again, this team went through 2 straight 4-game losing streaks in 23 and 24. Not a peep of dissension, not a peep of anybody jumping off the ship. And you know as well as anybody, that doesn't, you see that in every sport, right? You see somebody in the NHL, 4-game losing streak, something going on. MLB, it doesn't take much.
Well, let me give you an example. I mean, Dan Quinn is not stoic quite like Todd Bowles is, or at least that's my perception. But Dan Quinn has some of those quirks and some of those things about his leadership style and his personality, and I'm not sure what the buzzword has been in Tampa. I don't pay close enough attention to everything, but culture, right? Everybody talks about culture. Well, here, I don't know if Dan Quinn ever used the word culture, but you know what he used? Brotherhood. And I didn't quite get it at that time, because I thought, all right, that sounds hokey. I mean, I've heard the culture thing, but brotherhood, right? But then I started to think, I'm 30 years ago, I was initiated into a national fraternity, right? Phi Sigma Kappa. And one of our cardinal principles, one of the 3 things that we are supposed to stand for, is brotherhood, right? And I started thinking, oh, wait a second. I did sacrifice and do a lot of things for my guys, right? For the guys that were with me and on that journey. And that was the whole point that Dan Quinn was trying to get across. And much like, again, Todd Bowles, when things started to go sideways and they lost 3 in a row to Dallas and Philly on a Thursday night and Pittsburgh, right? Everybody just stayed super duper focused. Everybody stayed on ship. No squeaky wheels or anything like that. And then they come out and just destroy a Tennessee team. Granted, Tennessee was not good, but their defense was playing really good. And if you remember, they were off of an upset win in Houston the week before. And they destroyed them, and they never lost again until Sunday. So, these things, these leadership, these character things, these brotherhood, the culture, staying on the ship, all that stuff, like that means something still to people, even at the highest level.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think it can be hokey. But if you have guys that have been around the game, right? Dan Quinn and Todd Bowles, they're football lifers. So I understand that there's guys out there that are young, they're upstarts, they're usually on the offensive side of the ball. I understand everybody's looking for the next Sean McVay and the next Kyle Shanahan. But let's not forget there's other guys that have tried to go down that route, those young offensive play callers. And then you're looking to them when things go awry, and you realize that they're not built for this. Their character is not strong enough to be able to weather the storm. And that's something that I don't think Dan Quinn got enough credit in Atlanta for that, and Todd Bowles certainly doesn't get enough credit for that here. Before I let you go, I want to ask you about the Super Bowl. Who's who do you think's going to win? Who do you got? And also Saquon Barkley. I brought him up yesterday on the program because I don't know if we've ever seen a legacy-defining performance from a non-quarterback like we've seen this year with Saquon Barkley. He could have broke Dickerson's record if they let him. The team, I feel like somehow people just like they didn't give them credit because of what happened last year. Like it seems like, oh yeah, the Eagles are good. They're in the Super Bowl. Like It's just weird because they got a crap ton of talent. I mean, you guys see them twice a year, but just your take on the Eagles and their chance to dethrone the Chiefs.
All right, I'm not on a hard out here, am I?
No, you're fine.
Okay, let me give you this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Saquon Barkley, when he was coming out of Penn State, my favorite player in the draft, I begged and pleaded for the Giants to take him at number 2, and everyone told me I was crazy when the Jets moved up from 6-3 with Indianapolis and drafted Sam Darnold a pick behind, right? Oh, they're going to regret that. First of all, they never regretted it for 1 second. Secondly, they still managed to bleep it up when he became a free agent, right? Mm-hmm. And I understood once you made the mistake, and it was a mistake to pay Daniel Jones what he obviously got, that, you know, you have to kind of make some tough choices, right? And anytime you pay a quarterback, which is why everybody talks about the window that the Commanders are currently in, right? That you can't keep everybody. So I sort of understood the Giants getting rid of him. What the problem was is, we're going to let him go as a free agent to a team that we've got to go not only twice against, mm-hmm. but that we have to compete theoretically in the division for 17 games. Remember, he has an impact in 15 other games as well as the 2 against you. So, you know, that was one thing. Saquon, I didn't love him on Sunday from a Commander's perspective. The touchdown that he broke off on the first play from scrimmage was so like what I feared all week, which was, hey, man, you cannot allow a 5-yard run. Give it up. Give up a 5-yard run. Give up a 6-yard run. You can't allow a 5 or a 6 to turn into a 60, and immediately they threw up all over themselves. They had guys falling down like dominoes. They had guys missing tackles. They had guys taking the wrong angle and the wrong shoulder and all of that, and immediately you went, oh God, oh no. Yeah. And yet still somehow the Commanders found themselves, even with Barkley scoring on and dealing with a whatever he was dealing with his leg, and he scored the next time he touched the ball on a short touchdown around right end. You still, like, after that, he wasn't a huge factor in the game, mm-hmm. but he was such a big factor early that he, of course, was a huge factor in the game. So I'll leave it at that. I mean, Philadelphia and Howie Roseman, and I know a couple of those guys under Howie that I worked with here in Washington. And, I talked to one of them earlier in the year, and they were like, man, we thought he was good. We miscalculated. I said, what do you mean miscalculated? He goes, he's bleeping amazing. Mm-hmm. Like, not good. Not what we thought we were getting. He's that much better than we thought we were getting. And that's from a top official under Howie Roseman, okay? So you take that for what it is. Now, as far as the Super Bowl, if Philadelphia is healthy, and they are banged up, Gainwell's banged up, Barkley's banged up, Landon Dickerson's banged up, Cam Jurgens is banged up, Quinyon Mitchell seems to be fine. Jalen Hurts seems to be fine. But, if they're already missing Nakobe Dean. If they are healthy and they are right and they don't throw up all over themselves, I think they beat Kansas City. As great as Andy Reid is, as great as Patrick Mahomes is, as great as Spagnuolo is, as great as Chris Jones is, I just think they have more talent and more depth and better in more phases. That being said, and if Jalen Hurts decides, I'm going to dribble down my chin and I'm going to, play a game that is half of what we saw on Sunday at Lincoln Financial, then obviously Kansas City is going to win that game. Or if Patrick somehow elevates again to being Superman, right? But I don't know what to expect because Kelsey, I thought, was, breaking out, that he really didn't do that much last Sunday. So I think Kansas City needs a big game out of him. Can you get that done against CJ Gardner-Johnson and that Eagles secondary? I don't know. I have to see it first, as good as Kelsey is. I have to see it. And I also know this. I will just say this. If the game comes down to a place kicking situation, whether throughout the game, extra points, field goal, whatever, I would take Kansas City, and I would lean towards Kansas City because I trust Harrison Butker. I don't trust Jake Elliott anymore.
Which is crazy because I thought earlier this year or late last year, I thought he was the best kicker in the game. Jake Elliott.
Well, look at how quickly it falls apart, not only for Elliott, but also in Baltimore.
Yeah.
I mean, it in some ways, Jay, and you'll know this because you're a big baseball guy, right? Remember when a second baseman, this might have been a little bit before your time, Steve Sachs for the Dodgers got the yips, right? And he couldn't throw.
Chuck Knobloch had the same thing.
Mackie Sasser, exactly. Rick Ankiel, remember what he went through with the St. Louis, and all of a sudden, like, guys just go through this 1 year period, 1.5, and maybe they never get out of it. I don't know. But if the game comes down to kicking, and it doesn't have to necessarily just be on the final play or the final series or in the final minute, it could be throughout the game on extra points or whatever, or just decisions that are made. I think Kansas City has a strong advantage in that area.
Yeah, you got that right, because you're listen, it could be a mixed extra point early on in the game, and then they have to go for two, and they're not able to come up with it. I'm with you. I find it hard to be able to pick against Kansas City. I don't know what it is, and I look at a couple of years ago, Jalen Hurts played as good of a game as he's going to play. He fumbled one time. Nick Bolton picked it up, and that was really the difference in the game, 38-35. It's definitely one of those things where, like, let's say Kansas City wins again, Chris. Then what does Philadelphia say? Failure of a year? Because I don't know if you can't call this year a failure, but one team is going to be happy and everybody else is going to be pissed.
I mean, I think that's how their dopey fans would grade it, right? Nothing less than a Super Bowl championship. But you and I know, listen, man, there's no disrespect or no insult in losing to what would be then the three-time defending and four-time, had a 6-year Super Bowl champions. And that guy that you guys hated, the guy that you guys forced out, the guy that you guys thought was a village idiot in Andy Reid. And that would be some sweet chin music. I'll leave it at that to the Philadelphia fan base.
They call him the Heartbreak Kid up there in D.C. for the team. Chris Russell. Chris, I appreciate you, brother. Enjoy the Royal Rumble this weekend. I'm actually going to be here at Amalie Arena. One of my coworkers, Ed Encina. Do you know Ed Encina? Eddie Encina?
Yes, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, so Eddie spent a lot of time in Baltimore, kind of in that area. So Eddie's a big wrestling fan too. So he sits 2 seats down from me. I'm actually going to broach the topic tonight at the game. Like, hey, the Royal Rumble starts at 6 on Saturday. We got to be here anyway. Let's just sit next to each other so we can watch it.
I mean,
it makes it easy for everybody.
So what do you got? The Lightning at 7? Is that what the deal
Lightning
is? Right,
at 7, and the start time for the Royal Rumble is at 6.
It's
so
6.
All right, quick before you leave, give it your pick. Give me your pick. Who's going to win the Royal Rumble?
Somehow, some way, I still feel like John Cena's gotta be involved big time in this, right? So, but that's so hokey because we know he shouldn't be. Oh God. I mean, it looked. I'm gonna just say Drew McIntyre.
Oh, I like that.
I'm gonna say Drew McIntyre, just because. He's obviously been involved with Cody Rhodes and everything, right? He's obviously a main event star. But if you think about it, the storyline has been for a year and a half, 2 years now, he's been basically kicked in the onions, right? And denied and denied and denied. Now he gets his redemption. And on the road to wrestling. Now, I don't know how they pull it off because, I mean, how they left Raw last night with CM Punk and Cody Rhodes in the ring, that certainly is another setup, right? And you would think maybe see it. I don't know, man. This is why I don't gamble much, because I can't figure out everything, the solution to everything.
I start pairing him off. I think it'll be Cody Rhodes and John Cena, possibly at WrestleMania. I think somehow, some way, I don't know if they give it to John Cena at the Rumble because he's supposed to be part of Elimination Chamber and all these different things. And I don't know if he would be involved in those other pay-per-views leading up to WrestleMania if he wins the Royal Rumble. So that's why I kind of bring him out. I think Seth and CM Punk will they'll pair off because that'll be the WrestleMania match. I think all roads lead to Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, maybe 3 or there's going to be a 3-way match at some point. It's going to be Cody, Roman, and Cena, or it's going to be
Well,
Seth,
what about The Rock
Drew, and CM Punk, or The Rock.
Or
Don't
The
be
Rock.
surprised. Or I think The Rock could possibly rock Roman Reigns, and Rock helps Drew McIntyre win the Royal Rumble. And also, don't be surprised if Brock Lesnar comes back in here too. I think Brock Lesnar and Gunther has, kind of something that's permeating on the outside. So
I like
that is why you're here on the Jay Recher podcast. Chris Russell, the one and only, again, the Heartbreak Kid. I think that's a great nickname.
Nobody calls me a sexy boy, though. I will just say that. I will just say that. Thank you,
from
my
the
friend.
Team 980 from up there in DC. Appreciate it, man. Have a good show today, man. Talk soon.
You got it. Thanks, Jay.
All right, buddy. Always a great one, Chris Russell. I mean, we could do that for hours and hours and hours. Listen, go check them out. Odyssey app, Team 980. I was listening to some of their program last week leading up into the big game between Washington and Philadelphia. It's always great to be able to get that perspective from other cities and from other teams around the country because we're so hyper-focused, and every fan base is, right? And every city is, where you're so hyper-focused on your teams. We are locked in to the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Buccaneers and the Rays and the Rowdies and the Sun and USF and UT and everybody. Like, that's where our main focus is. But here on the Jay Recher podcast, because I've been able to build and fortify so many of these relationships over the years, I want to be able to get that perspective and to be able to hear from Chris and what he had to say about Jayden Daniels and about the Washington Commanders. Like, what a season for them. What a season for Jayden Daniels. And I don't know, and I want to pose this question to everybody out there. Do you feel better about how the season ended for the Buccaneers because you saw Washington go into Detroit and to beat the Lions? I know I did. Now, it doesn't take away the entire sting of what the team was unable to do. Like, obviously, you want to be able to put more points on the board. You're upset about the fumble. You want to be able to force them to punt at some point. But it did make me feel slightly better knowing that they were able to go into Detroit and beat the Lions. It wasn't a fluke. Like, Jayden Daniels is legit. Didn't just have a great regular season. He was phenomenal in the postseason as well. So I do feel a little bit better. It doesn't completely absolve like all the pain and make me okay with it, but it takes a little bit of the sting out of it. Dolan, we all hate Philly, no doubt. I like Barkley, and for the first time ever, I'll be pulling for Philly to beat Kansas City. I know that's crazy to say. I can't believe I even typed it. Our guy Nick down in Sarasota, it's all about who gets more turnovers out of their defense. Fangio and Spags both have their hands full. I don't know, though. I see what you're saying, Nick, right? But what if there are no turnovers? What if it's a relatively clean game from both teams? I always look at the turnover margin and the turnover ratio and see who's turned over the ball more, this team or this team. Well, I mean, you look at that Super Bowl. Yeah, it was 1-0. And then you look at this past game against the Buffalo Bills, and it didn't even matter. So, if you're within one, I think you're okay. It also depends on when those turnovers occur, when you throw an interception, when you lose the ball. And Chris brought up a good point about the kicking game. We always look at the end, and that's what happens when we look back at this game between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills, of the fourth down, the lack of the conversion there, the throw from Josh Allen that wasn't brought down by Dalton Kincaid. You can look at that. That's fine. But there's so many different plays leading up to that maybe they're just as important, because you don't even get to that scenario. You don't even get into that situation without those plays that precede it. Lamar Jackson, everybody looks at that play at the end of the game up there in Buffalo against the Bills and go, well, he did his job. He took him down the field, scored a touchdown, and he threw a pass that Mark Andrews dropped. Yeah, I understand that. But there's plays that led up to that earlier on in the game where he turned the football over. I mean, the interception he threw, like, you cannot do that. There is such a small margin for error. You cannot afford to just be all willy-nilly with the football and think that, all right, well, if I turn the football over, it's okay. It's not okay. We saw the game between the Washington Commanders and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers where that's all it took. Sometimes it comes down to just one play. Our guy Hammer, great conversation, Jay. And yes, it does make it sting less that they beat the Lions. We couldn't do it last year. He's pulling for Andy Reid, no one else, especially not the ugly ass Birds. Listen, you may not like the Philadelphia Eagles, and I get that. And you may not like the fans. And there was something that I read on social media yesterday. It was one of the super fans for the Washington Commanders, and it was him and a friend of his, and he put out a post of just how horribly they were treated by some of the Eagles fans in the stands there, and verbal abuse, spewing these just nasty vernacular, nasty speech, hateful rhetoric. Like I understand giving some grief to the opposing fans if they're in your building, going back and forth, talking some smack. That's part of sports, right? Fan is short for fanatic. But there is a line. Let's not forget, there is a line there. And you're talking about a guy that I went to a Yankees-Mets game one time, and I had batteries thrown at me from Mets fans. So, I mean, sports are crazy, but I think it's important to shine a light on some of those stories because we need to realize that at the end of the day, it is just a game. All right, it is time because it is not just a game when she joins us on the show. It's the one and only Colleen Wright from the Tampa Bay Times. You can hear her everywhere. I woke up this morning, turned on the radio when you were on. I'm like, I know that voice. There you were, Colleen Wright from the Tampa Bay Times. How are things? How was your weekend?
Hi, Jay. It was good. I was glad the sun came out finally. Not used to that. Not used to it being so gloomy and 38 all the time. So.
It's so crazy. Like we have this thing with Tampa, the weather here in St. Pete, where they moonlight as like a winter state for like a week, and then it's like, oh yeah, no, we're just kidding. We're gonna go back to what the normal weather is. Where are you? You look like you're in a distinguished location.
I am at the mothership. I'm at the
nice.
Pointer Institute, which Pointer owns the Tampa Bay Times. So I'm here. I'm actually in the auditorium because that was the only room available. So
do you ever run into Tom Jones there, former Tampa Bay Times?
All the time.
Well, make sure you tell Jonesy I said hello. He was definitely instrumental in my career. The first show I ever interned on was the show with Rick Stroud and Tom Jones back on WDAE.
Wow.
I attribute a lot of my success and learning the ropes from Rick Stroud and Tom Jones. So make sure you tell both those guys I said hello. So it's not every day you get to talk to a owner of a professional sports franchise, but you got a chance to hear from Stu Sternberg. And Colleen, this is such a crazy thing. And thank you so much for joining us because you make our show so much better and you inform us with such great information. We've talked multiple times in the short life of the Jay Recher podcast. What's the latest? When you hear these words from Stu, I mean, what do you glean from the conversation that you have from a guy knowing that a lot of eyeballs are on him and the decision-making process of what is going to happen with baseball here in the Tampa Bay area?
Sure. I mean, it's really hard to glean anything without being speculative. And, I tried not to be speculative. I tried to just report facts and whatnot. But all I can really say is, first of all, I wasn't expecting to see Stu there. This event is kind of an annual event. It brings the mayors of Tampa, St. Petersburg, and Clearwater together. So I've covered it. I don't even know how many times, 4 times at this point. I don't recall seeing Stu there last time. Or like last year, I remember seeing other Rays representatives, but Stu was there this year, which you can take that as a sign of like being seen in public for the first time. I don't know, maybe that's good. But yeah, he wasn't really giving me a whole ton. Basically just saying it seems like it could come down to the wire. It won't be whatever decision is made about the new stadium deal. Stu was saying that it won't go until March 31st. That is their deadline before the team is basically in default of these agreements that were celebrated last summer. So it could happen maybe like I tried to get him so next month in February. Could it be like early March? Something will happen. It's not clear what. It's not clear if it's still a money issue, as St. Petersburg Mayor Ken Welch kind of hinted at. Not clear what's going on. Did not really get a strong sense either way if this is happening or it's not happening or some other third option. I don't know what that looks like. But take it for what it's worth. He showed up in public at a very political event. So
yeah, and I think that's the thing about this whole process. And it's kind of funny how now Chris Latvala is a guy that's so hyper focused and he's front and center throughout this entire thing. And I remember when I had him on originally, and people were like, "I can't believe you had that guy on." Well, now it's like he's going back and forth. I don't know if you see it, but he's going back and forth with people on social media.
Oh, I see it.
Oh yeah, you're with me. You got the popcorn, right? It's just like, it's kind of wild. This is, in a weird way, it's almost like watching your parents like going through marriage counseling in front of everybody. And it's just so, like, I don't know if it's, I appreciate the transparency, and I appreciate like being in the loop and knowing certain aspects of this. But there's also a part of me that looks at this, and I don't know if I'm wrong or I'm right, Colleen, where it's just like, I don't want to see this. I just put all your stuff to the side and let's figure this out, whether it's yes or no. It's just such a weird back and forth. Do you get that same kind of inkling?
Yeah, and it's even difficult to even characterize how things are at this point. I mean, we do know that the city is meeting with Stu. In fact, Mayor Ken Welch is meeting with Stu today. It's actually like, I think it happened like at 11 a.m. And they also met last week. So they are talking about kind of like what's needed to kind of get past this, right? To kind of like come back to the table and get together and kind of kiss and make up and kind of be like how they were last summer, right? When things were kind of like kumbaya and hunky dory. But you know, the mayor was saying yesterday, and he said this publicly, not just to me, but also publicly at this event, saying like the Rays are the closer. Like, we've never been closer. He said that before, but the Rays are the ones who are just going to get us there. And I didn't take it like shade or anything. But he is right. I mean, that is factual. Everything else is buttoned up. All the Rays need to do is just proceed. What
do they need to hear? What do they need? Like,
Sure.
what is the wordage? What is the email? Because they're trading. They've been trading emails. What does the city? What does the county? What does everybody need to see from the Rays that everybody can go, all right, let's move forward?
So by March 31st, they have to prove that they've met like certain conditions, that they've like have 50% of the design documents, that they've done a certain amount of work to show that they're really in it. And most importantly,
real quick, Colleen, this is for not for the new stadium. We're talking about the Trop, right?
Oh no, we're talking about the new stadium.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Are we talking about the Trop? It's confusing because both things have happened.
Yes. No, that's fine.
Yeah. Real quick on the Trop. Yeah.
Okay.
Real quick on the Trop. From what I've seen in some records I've gotten, it looks like that will come before council March 27th. That could change. It could come even earlier. It seems like the votes are there. That seems like less of the pressing issue. Whether it gets done or not, that remains to be seen. But on the current stadium deal, which, by the way, I just want to say the city does think it's going to happen. Like, it'll be done by 2026.
Which one? Both of them?
The Trop. Trop, you know, fixing the Trop, that the Trop would be ready by the 2026 season.
Okay.
They're already like trading proposals about like what else can we fix besides the roof, like what needs to be fixed on the inside, stuff like that.
They wouldn't be that far down that path if they didn't think that was going to be a possibility, right?
Well, they're required through their agreement to. They legally have to diligently pursue. It's something, the word diligently is in there, but basically diligently pursue repair. So like they're kind of doing what they got to do anyway. But anyway, back to the actual stadium deal, which is what we're kind of on the clock for by March 31st. The Rays have to show that they have like $700 million that they're willing to shell out for this deal. But if that checklist doesn't happen and they don't prove all this stuff by then, they go into default on those agreements, and then all the kind of the ballpark, the new stadium, the gas plant, all this stuff will maybe start to unwind. It's fuzzy, like, you know, the city, this has not been discussed, but like, is there some wiggle room? Maybe, probably, but you kind of need to know by March 31st. And the mayor of St. Pete, Mayor Ken Welch, has said his State of the City address is actually this coming Tuesday on the 4th, February 4th. And he's like, you know, the community needs certainty and like needs to know what's going on. And he's like, and I plan to paint a clear picture of what's going on, because it's kind of true. And this is kind of wading less into sports and more into like city politics. Right. But like, this is kind of the only thing happening in the city really right now. Like, so many other projects have been paused, on hold, not advancing. And Ken Welch has kind of put all his eggs in this basket. So it's kind of really important that like certainty needs to come now, because already his reelection is in 2026. And this kind of also came up a little bit yesterday. So people want to know what's going on. the clock is ticking, agreements are on hold, we got to figure out. And then, yeah, you do have like the trop repairs in the background. Cause like, are you going to fix this building that you're going to tear down in 3-4 years? Who knows?
Yeah, you're so spot on when it comes to Mayor Ken Welch, because he is really taking the bull by the horns with this entire thing.
Yeah.
And all the bonus payments that he gave out, and then he retracted them. He says, no, we're not doing that. Like all that stuff, and people working overtime. Like he has been one of the big time faces of this entire thing. And
Sure.
if it all blows up in his face, like, I mean, it could affect his candidacy, right? Like it could affect
Totally.
him being the mayor in a couple of years, where if this whole thing just poof blows up, like there's a good chance that he probably isn't going to be the mayor come re-election time. So now, just for those that are just kind of getting up to speed of this, the fact that let's say everything goes through Tropicana Field, they get back in there 26, 27. Now we've always had the conversation, all right, new ballpark 2028, but because they're not playing there in 2025, that pushes it back a year, correct? So that new ballpark would be 2029 then for opening day rather than 2028, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I know
Yes,
there's a
yes.
lot of people. That's the hard thing about this, Colleen, and you and I have had this conversation multiple times. There's people that get little bits of information here or there. There's the confusion over the Trop, over the new stadium. And then there's some people that are like, it's almost like the old Green Day song, wake me up when September ends, wake me up when shovels are in the ground, right? And that's kind of the wild back and forth throughout this entire process. Is there's still, and for somebody like you that covers it so directly, there's still a lot of questions and not as many answers.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, I've had like friends tell me, because I post my stories like on Instagram and on Twitter, and some people are like, it almost reads like it's the same thing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny because it really isn't. And it kind of feels like when one move is made, it kind of affects another move, and that affects another
Mm-hmm.
move. And like the path is just not very clear at this point. But right now, really, it's on the Rays. It's on the Rays right now to just say what they want to do, what's going to happen. But I want to go back to something real quick.
Yeah.
You were talking about Mayor Ken Welch's re-election, all that. I quoted him in my story yesterday, and he kind of mentioned it. He just dropped it in there that he's like, this is something that not only I've been dealing with my entire administrations, but also past administrations.
Right.
Right. We know that this whole stadium effort goes back to 2007. This has been going on. We're in 2025. What's the math on that? 18 years?
18 years. Yeah.
18 years. It's now a legal adult. The stadium search is now a legal adult and can vote and buy cigarettes. And we've had 3 mayors before this one dealing with it. And for example, Mayor Kreisman, who's the mayor before current mayor Ken Welch, has said, like, he said, there's a common denominator here. And it's not Baker and it's not Foster, who's the mayor before Kreisman.
Right.
It's not me. It's the Rays.
Right.
And then you also have Tampa mayors, right? You've got Buckhorn and you have Castor, who was at, this event yesterday. So I don't know if that like sets it up to be like, for Ken Welch to be like, hey, I did everything. It's
Right.
on the Rays. That there may be some political posturing next year. Right now, everybody's kind of still playing very nice. Sending letters, but it could get ugly. It got ugly between Kreisman and the Rays. So I don't know if that's in the cards if this doesn't work out. I think Ken really, 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 really is like manifesting that this will work out and is putting it out there. But I'm just saying that, like, could this become like more ugly? I don't know. I think, Ken mentioning like, it's not just my administration, it's other administrations, like already kind of puts that ripple out there.
Yeah. And I just purely because I've interviewed him a couple times, met him a couple times, just purely for Ken Welch, not even the mayor, the man. Like, I wanted to work for him because he's really, I mean, you talk about putting forth your best foot and doing everything you can and knowing that you could be fighting somewhat of a losing battle. You know that there's a lot of questions that you have to answer yourself. And, maybe you don't always take the best steps, but Ken Welch is really, man, he's trying to do everything in his power to make this work and to try to bring these sides together. All right. So give us, what's kind of the next date? When's kind of the next thing? I know I asked you the last time, and I know March 31st is kind of like the drop dead, but just give us kind of like what we should be keeping an eye on over the next couple of weeks. And, kind of what's your inkling on where the Rays head is at right now, if you can.
Yeah. I don't know what else is going on. Ken Welch mentioned yesterday that there's like this specific issue. And I was like, well, what is the specific issue that's in the way of this agreement? And he was like, well, you'll have to ask Stu that. But then he goes and talks about the money, about, this funding gap that we've talked about on the show, right? That the Rays say that they can no longer afford the project now because of the delays and the cost overruns. However, they still have not named that number. I asked Stu that directly, didn't say the number. That number's still not out there. Ken Welch has not seen anything that itemizes how they got to that number or anything like that. So if there's like a secret third thing that needs to be solved, I don't know. So we're on watch for that. We're on watch for right now. There's just like little adjustments into like repairs at Tropicana Field and kind of like buttoning those things up. They're meeting with his name is escaping me right now, but it was in Topkins' column because I gave him the name. One of like Major League Baseball's like guys, like main guys. I think he actually runs like the minor leagues. He's meeting with city officials and with contractors to repair the Trop. Or to kind of like settle on the Major League Baseball standards to kind of like fix the Trop. So we've got Trop repairs. We've got, is this deal actually going to happen or not by March 31st? And in the middle of all that, we also have opening day. So, and I think like, I do think that like how this goes in Tampa, like, is this a bellwether for something different? I have no idea. They're jacking up the prices, as we know, for tickets for 2025, for this upcoming season. March is going to be a very interesting month. But as far as like the interim, every day, I don't know if I'm going to find another letter or something that like, kind of has like one more step in the process. So we're always looking. But I think March is going to be the next big month to look forward to.
Is Stu kind of the fly in the ointment here? Like, is he the guy that, maybe that's too strong of a term, but is Stu the guy that's kind of the ultimate decider on whether this gets done? He's just, it all comes back to Stu Sternberg, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing else for the city and county to do, except I guess if they want to throw more money at the deal, but I wouldn't rule anything out. But I mean, the mayor has said not one more, I think he said not one more dime. Was his exact phrasing. It was either one more dime or one more cent or something like that. The county doesn't want to do anything, but there's no more approvals or anything for them to do. The only thing that's left is the Trop repairs. But that, like I said, that's kind of like a landlord-tenant issue. They're kind of required to do it anyway. And the votes are there, I believe. I mean, unless someone like switches or something, but the last time I kind of like surveyed people, that didn't seem to be in any kind of jeopardy. So
all eyes are on Stu Sternberg.
Yeah, it's literally up to Stu. I mean, it's their call. It's the Rays' call. Or do they want to put their money? Do they have the money? Do they want to put the money down? Is it a matter of will, or is it a matter of, do you even have the money? Like it doesn't matter. It's literally just on the Rays to come through with the deal that they also agreed to.
Does that strike you in a weird way of like, you guys agreed to this deal? So it's not like the city and the county are coming out with this different information. Like, oh, we're sliding this in there, we're sliding that in there. It's just like, kind of agreed to this deal. What's with the dragging the feet?
I guess, and that's the thing, that it's just like so hard to put it in. I mean, it is expensive to not play at Tropicana Field. It's pretty disruptive, and you can not to compare these two things, but like, you think of people who lost their homes in the hurricane, and like they're paying their mortgage and they're paying rent somewhere else as they wait for insurance. And like, yeah, that's enough to like bankrupt some people, and like we're talking, I mean, this is a multi-million-dollar, if not billion-dollar business. But it's pretty disruptive. I mean, you think of all the people who work at Tropicana Field and how like that's going to work at the Yankees, and you got to pay the Yankees, and like it might just be like one too many things, and then like a 2029 delay when you were probably expecting a windfall of cash in 2028 because you think of sponsors and you think of, just all the things that come with debuting a new stadium. That's now just a year later. We don't know how legit that is. I mean, we know that these delays at the county, this consultant who says he's worked on like 20 or 25 deals that was hired by the city and the county, who was, from what I remember, very well liked by the Rays, was saying like there's no way this like 49-day delay or whatever from the county could possibly cause 150 million, 200 million, something in the 9 figures of delays. But it might just be like one too many things, or that they don't either don't have the money, or B, just decide that it's, maybe they do have the money and then no longer think that it's actually a good deal or a worthy deal, or So I don't know if it's a matter of will
Mhm.
or if it's a matter of the Rays literally just don't have that cash. We don't know. And we'll maybe get some of that clarity, by March 31st.
By March 31st. That is the date on the calendar we will have circled. Colleen Wright from the Tampa Bay Times. Colleen_Wright. Check her out, Twitter/X. She's very floral today and always very helpful on the program. And make sure you subscribe to the Tampa Bay Times. We have our guy Eddie Encina joining us on every single Thursday. And again, support local. That is something that I continue to press, and I will always, I'll die on the sword with that one. Support our local media, support the people that are out there putting in the work. Rick Stroud just gave the example a little while ago, drove 4 hours yesterday to go to the Jacksonville Jaguars press conference for Liam Cohen. These are the type of people that we have working in our area. So please, whatever you can do, please support our friends over at the Tampa Bay Times. Colleen, you're the best. You are number one. Have a great rest of your day, and keep an eye out for any new letters.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate the shout out.
You got it. The one and only Colleen Wright. We love baseball here in the Tampa Bay area, and our Tampa Bay Rays, man, listen, it is going to be very, very wild to kind of see how this whole thing unfolds. March 31st is that date where they got to come to the table and say, all right, we're doing this thing or we're not doing this thing. And it's wild because just talking to Colleen about it, I thought we were talking about the stadium, repairs. And she's like, no, this is the new stadium deal. It's like, oh my gosh, it is so hard. And I feel like I'm pretty in tune with this entire thing. But hey, just if I'm having difficulties wrapping my head around it, I know there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in the Tampa Bay area thinking the same thing. All right, our next guest, I know he's in the middle of a big meeting over there, but we're going to bring him in. Look at that office over there. We got I honestly thought you were talking to the coaches. That's Manikins. Is that Coach Jose back there? There he is.
Coach Jose doing his work, getting ready for opening day.
Coach Jose, and there he is, El Jefe, the one and only Joe Urso, the defending D2 national champion, the multi-time champion, and a guy I consider a good friend. What's up, brother? How are you?
I'm doing great. How about you, Jay?
Oh, man, listen, I was surprised. I had to look at my phone. It was like, oh, yeah, the home opener, season opener Friday night. I'm like, probably feel like we were just in Cary like 2 weeks ago. We just did the ring ceremony last week. Like, holy smokes. I mean, no rest for the weary, man. How jacked up are you guys to start this 2025 season?
No, I think all the returners are real excited. Now we get to see what this 2025 team is going to be all about. There's a lot of talent on paper, but as we know, it takes a lot more than just talent to win championships. And hopefully some of these new guys will jump on board and get with these returners and understand what the culture is all about here, so we can make another deep run and hopefully bring back a championship again this year.
What's the first thing somebody says, I want to see this Friday night? What's that one thing you want to see from the team Friday night?
So, it's Skylar Gonzalez just setting a tone like he did last year. Hopefully he can get things rolling again. There's always going to be nerves on opening day, even for returners, but we'll have a lot of new guys in the lineup. So we've been just talking about, pitching and defense, stay close within those first 5 innings and then let the Spartans hopefully take over the second half of the game.
How about the depth this year? That's another thing. I mean, we see that in all sports. Like, the depth is so freaking important. And, it's a long season. You travel, you're playing these series every weekend, and then you have some midweek stuff going on too. It's such a wild schedule as the year goes on. How important is the depth to your squad, and what does that look like this season?
Yeah, it's a little deeper than I'm used to managing. And with that, I'm going to have to, have a lot of meetings and make sure the personalities, stay with where I want. They don't get frustrated when they're only playing 2 out of 3 on a weekend instead of playing all 3 like last year. But we're excited about the depth, and I feel like I can throw a lineup out there that's going to be, loaded against left-handers, loaded against right-handers, and maybe try to create, roles for each of these guys to keep a larger group happy throughout the long season.
How long does that take, Joe? How long does that take for you to figure out, all right, this is going to be my guy that we're up by, we're winning in the 7th. This is my guy that I'm putting behind the plate. This is my guy that's going to be, all right, I'm going to move my center fielder to left, and this is my defense specialist in center field. Like, there's so many different aspects, and you and I have talked about this for 2 decades now. When coaches say, I can't get guys into the game. Well, you're not being intelligent enough, and you're not finding a way because you can get guys into the game, even if it's just a pinch runner, even if it's a guy that's you're a bat off, a relief pitcher. Like, how long does that take though to kind of formulate, all right, roles for certain guys that aren't just, hey, I'm going to pencil them in, batting third, playing third every day?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to take me about 3 to 4 weeks. We just had an exhibition game last week to see how things were going to look for us. And I learned a lot just on night one. I always tell the guys, the opening day lineup is not going to be the same as that final lineup in the World Series because there's a lot to learn throughout the year. But it'll probably take me 3 to 4 weeks to understand what's going to be the best for each role, even a sack bunting type role. And it'll probably take them a little bit longer to buy into what I want. Probably more into that, 6 week range where they finally say, okay, well, maybe I'm not an everyday starter here at Tampa, but I do have a major role here, in the last 3 innings coming in to play defense or whatever it may be. Joe,
what's your non-negotiables? What are things that that you don't even have to ask? Like, if you see a guy doing that or behaving like that it's non-negotiable. It's going to be tough for him to be able to find playing time.
Yeah, I mean, it's about the team, and it's about being a good teammate, putting those guys first. I think that's when everyone will be better. If you're having fun in that kind of team environment, everyone's talent is going to take off. So we pretty much we preach that a lot. Obviously, you better be on time or early everywhere we go. So I don't have a lot of rules, but they better never embarrass our brand and what we've created here, and they know that, and they work hard. They don't take it for granted, even though I know a lot of people expect us to win a World Series every year. These kids don't take it for granted. They work hard, and they're there to protect this brand.
I always tell people that the secret sauce to what makes you guys so well makes you guys so good over the years is that just the family dynamic. I mean, every time I go there, I feel welcome and I feel like part of the team. And, I see your families there, Jose and Sam's, just everybody's like, family is such an important dynamic throughout this entire endeavor, throughout the season. But how do you build that? Like, how long does it take for you guys to create? I mean, obviously last year when you guys win the championship, you're able to create that dynamic, but is it different each year? Does it come through trials and tribulations? Like, do you have to go to a low point to be able to build that? Is it one of those things where it's inherent, where your leaders have to build that type of thing? Like, how does that kind of like atmosphere, how does that get built?
There always is a turning point in the middle of the year somewhere that we really take off as a group and as a family. But we started building that on January 10th, our first practice. We did a rooftop Buccaneer kickoff party in downtown Tampa. We went clay shooting as a group. We did a top golf event. We did a pizza party where Coach Jose cooked pizzas at my house, and all the guys were there. So we start to create that early in January. But, the total buy-in, it takes longer than that. And my wife will host a parent, get-together happy hour on a Friday, 4 to 5:15 as they prepare to come here. And they'll start to build that family atmosphere in the stands as well. And we believe it takes all of us, to create something special like we did last year.
Yeah, I saw the pictures of the clay shooting. I didn't know they allowed Coach Jose to have a rifle like that. I thought he was banned from doing that kind of stuff. No, but it's great. And to be able to see that on social media. And speaking of social media, like your video team, like it's pretty badass. You want to talk about players, but is that any part of the recruiting process at all? Do you think that helps? Obviously the success is there, so maybe it's not the greatest question to ask you, but because you have that. It's like, hey, look at the rinks. Like, what you don't need to sell yourself, but you guys are on the precipice and put out these you put out great content on social media too. That's part of the gig. I mean, you and I, we're old school baseball guys, man. We could care less about a video, right? Because it's just like, get down a bunt, hit behind the runner, turn two when you can turn two. But that is a part of the aspect and part of the draw of UT, isn't it?
It's a big part. And when I'm recruiting a kid, I tell them, every head coach on recruiting day has his A game, and they may be able to tell you what you want to hear that day. So go to our social media page. When I tell you I'm going to build a family second to none, go to our social media page and look at those 120 filet mignons that all the parents and girlfriends and players are out there enjoying together. Those they love it. They want to see all this on social media, and it validates everything that we're about.
Joe, give me a returning player that you got high hopes on and a new face that people that have been following UT need to learn the name.
Yeah. I mean, Skylar Gonzalez, 16-0 last year. Nothing's going to happen with a championship unless you have an ace on the mound. So we're going to be looking to him to carry us again this year. And then offensively, Alberto Osuna, 45 home runs the last 3 years at the University of North Carolina, a big time power transfer for us that is going to be looked to drive in a lot of runs.
Joe, before I let you go, I want to ask you about leadership, and I want to ask you about delegation, because again, I don't want to give away all your secrets, but I don't think it's a secret at all. But the one thing that I really enjoy watching you do is delegate to Jose and delegate to Sam. It's not even baseball. I think any successful business or any successful enterprise, your leader has to be a guy that trusts the people around him to do their job to the best of and the top of their capabilities. How long did it take for you to be able to trust those guys enough to be able to do that? And what is that process before a new season? Because do you ask them to do, I mean, it's easy to be like, all right, Jose, do the same thing you've been doing forever. Sam, do the same thing you're doing forever. But it kind of changes because each season and each team has its own kind of personality, doesn't it?
Yeah, and most of how I manage, I learned in the minor leagues with the Angels. And, I had full trust in my pitching coach, full trust in my hitting coach. So what I want to do is I want them to, take ownership into everything that happens here. And they're another extension of the head coach of me and a head coach. So Jose has every opportunity to give me what he thinks is our starting lineup. So does Coach Sam. It could be in between innings. Hey guys, you want to play small ball this inning? What are you thinking? And obviously it all falls on me, but I love, being able to get all opinions from Sam and Jose. And I'm very fortunate, obviously. I mean, you're talking about three guys that, really belong as head coach here, getting our minds together to make the best decision. And I'd be crazy not to utilize them like that.
Get out to the Birdcage Friday night. Baseball season is back right here in the Tampa Bay area, the home of the champs, the one and only the UT Spartans. Joe Urso, El Jefe, the man, the living legend. I love you, brother. I appreciate everything that you do here for our Tampa Bay area. Give my love to Jose. See you, brother. And Sammy and the entire crew. Best of luck, man. Take it home. You'll see me a bunch out there supporting our Spartans.
All right. Keep up the great work. Thanks for having us on.
Thanks, buddy. You got it. One and only Joe Urso, one of the best coaches, not even just here in the Tampa Bay area, but that you're going to find. And you hear me speak a lot about the common threads when it comes to teams, when it comes to coaches, when it comes to players, organizationally. Look no further than what you see at UT, right? The family atmosphere, they go above and beyond. They stay early. They show up early. They stay late. They do whatever it takes to win. It is a us over me mentality every single day. They don't leave any stone unturned. So when you have conversations about success here in the Tampa Bay area, we can talk about the Lightning winning back-to-back Stanley Cups, 3 of them in their existence, the 2 Super Bowl championships for our Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Rays, and the way that they're able to do so much with so little. But don't ever leave UT baseball out of that conversation, ever, because we have the absolute class of college baseball. I don't care if it's D1, D2. I listen, there's D1 teams that ain't playing UT, brother, because they don't want to get embarrassed. It's just the nature of the beast. There are pro teams. UT beat the Philadelphia Phillies years ago. So, I mean, let's just, think about that type of thing. You look at your circumstances, you look at the situations you're in, you look at your surroundings, right? A lot of times, what determines whether you're successful or not is you and the people around you and the decisions that you make, right? And you guys make. And what Joe does and the way that he's able to delegate all of these duties to Sam Militello as his pitching coach, to Jose Jimenez as his, offensive guru and first base coach, like they are a well-oiled machine. They do not stop. And I got a chance to, and I know that a lot of you guys saw it on social media. I was able to MC their ring ceremony a couple months ago. God, it's just turned so quickly. And before that, we went to lunch together and just to sit there and pick the brain of these guys. It was an absolute masterclass. And it's not just about baseball, right? Think about that. And I implore everybody out there, and I get into this habit sometimes, just maybe a little bit too much, of I'm so sports centric, and it's just like everything that I do. But I really try to make sure that I look down other avenues and look for other sources of information and inspiration and experience to try to make better decisions. Forget about my career, but my life. So when I look at Joe Urso and I listen to what he and Sammy and Jose have to say, a lot of the things that they do to be successful as a baseball team, if you follow those same guidelines, you're going to be successful in life. It's no mistake why they've been so good over the last, however long they've been there. And they're not going to stop. They're just going to continue to go, and they're going to continue to rake. And if you've never been to a game at the Birdcage there, go. Bring your family. Even if you're not a big baseball fan, go check it out. The scenery down there, when you are able to watch the city skyline from behind home plate, there's not many better views, I think, in all of college baseball. So it is amazing. Go check them out. UT Baseball. You can pay right there as soon as you walk up to the gate. You park right across the street. Free parking. I mean, you can't beat that. You can't beat that. Here live at Amalie Arena, Jay Recher Podcast here with you. Thank you to everybody that supports me. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. Like and subscribe on YouTube as well. Did you see the home run last night for Junior Caminero? He hit the bomb last night, a 454-foot home run in the ninth inning, earning the MVP honors in the Dominican League Championships for his hometown Escogido team. Game 7 of the Dominican League Championship Series, and he said to reporters, "It's something unforgettable. God has blessed me so much. The support of the fans. We are all a family. It has been tremendous. We know that Kevin Cash and some of the other members of the Rays were down there. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. The head coach or the manager of their team was Winnie the Pujols. But Caminero joined the team with 9 games left in the regular season, hitting .424. He hit .346 in the 7-game final with a 1.086 OPS. This guy, man. And when you look at him, he hit .248 last year with a 724 OPS in 43 games. I don't know. I grew up around the game, right? Dad was a coach. My grandfather was a coach. I really am one of those people that I'm just I pump the brakes on a lot of guys. There's so many different things you have to do to be a good baseball player. It's different than every other sport. It's a game of failure. You got to deal with it. You have to learn to struggle, and you have to thrive in that pressure. You have to be able to go, I'm 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts, but I can do it. And you come up big because nobody cares. You go 1 for 5 and you hit a walk-off. Nobody cares about your first 4 at-bats because you won the game. You helped the team win. And watching Junior Caminero, I watched it with such a, I don't want to say a negative or a pessimistic eye, but I was like, all right, show me what you're all about. People comparing him. I know Chris Adams-Wall from the Rays said, I don't know if it was him or somebody else, comparing him to a guy like Adrian Beltre. And if you remember Adrian Beltre, I think he's he's a Hall of Famer, but I even think he's still underrated with how good he was, not just offensively, but defensively. He could pick it there at third. He could do a little bit of everything and a great attitude. And to see Junior Caminero come up to the big leagues and to be able to play really good defense and to be able to have some quality at-bats. I know Wander was special, but I think Junior may even be better. I think his ceiling could be even higher because of the power bat. I cannot wait to see what he is going to do in the 2025 season. And yeah, with the Rays playing at Steinbrenner Field, this is going to be the most unique baseball season in Tampa Bay Rays history. This could be one of the most unique seasons ever in baseball history for a team. Now, I know it was in 2020, we had such a, it was a truncated season because of the pandemic, and it was more of a sprint than a marathon. I get that. But this is just for the Rays. It's not like a natural disaster happened to all of these different major league teams and everybody got displaced. No, it's just the Rays. So what happens this year when they're playing in the home of one of their biggest rivals and one of their minor league park? I can't wait. I think it's how they're going to deal with the rain and the weather. It's going to be hot as hell for some of those games outside. Like, I don't know. And I think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, but we're all going to be able to experience that together. And for me, selfishly, living on the Tampa side, I'll be able to go to a lot more games, and I'm going to put the onus on myself to be able to be in attendance for a lot of the games this year and really support this Rays team and to cover a team that is going to go through such a unique year. Jeff Taylor hit that 1,000 on YouTube. Congrats, Jay. What's your optimism on the Rays this year with a healthy staff, but still minimal power bats? Wild card. Yeah, I think they could win the wild card because they have that many good pitchers. Ryan Pepio, who joined us a couple of weeks ago, you just look at the rotation. And we'll have Shane McClanahan join us and Taj Bradley. And think about it. Shane McClanahan, Shane Boz, Ryan Pepio, Taj Bradley, Drew Rasmussen. I mean, this team, they got a ton of good arms. Bats, still something, they're leaving a lot to be desired there, to be honest with you. But you got Junior, and you put him in the middle of that lineup, and everything changes. When you have a big-time bat in the middle, you take some of the pressure off the guys around you. And we saw it for many, many years with Evan Longoria. Now you're getting it with another third baseman in Junior Caminero. How about Caballero being able to set the table? Where does he fit into this whole situation? What about no Jose Siri? How do they make up for that? We saw Dylan Carlson, who they brought over in a trade late last year. Now he signed with the Baltimore Orioles. So that opens up some spots where, all right, what about Taylor Walls? We know he's going to be back. Brandon Lau and Yandy Diaz. Like, if Lau's here, if Yandy's here, and let's not forget, Yandy Diaz and Randy Arozarena did not get off to great starts last year. But if Yandy can get back to being one of the best, 2 or 3 leadoff hitters in the game, that changes the entire dynamic. Brandon Lau was relatively healthy last year. And for all the things we say about how streaky he can be, he really is one of the better offensive bats in Major League Baseball at that position. So if you can get 130 games out of Brandon Lau, if you can get Yandy Diaz to revert to 2023 Yandy Diaz, and Josh Lowe can be the guy that we all know that he can be, the potential's there, to go with Junior Caminero, that's 4 really good players to start off with. You got Danny Jansen behind the plate, so maybe you can get kind of an everyday catcher back there, and you start crossing some of these off. I'm not worried about what is going on the pitching side, right? You trust Kyle Snyder, you trust all the starters, you trust the bullpen, because even if you don't know the guys' names, they're going to eventually work it out. But Jeff Taylor brings it up too. Well said. Appreciate the interaction. Hope Blau abuses that short porch. Yes, with the same type of parameters that we see at Yankee Stadium, that could help some left-handed hitters, including a guy like Brandon Lau. But let's not forget, Jeff, and listen, when this happens, Jeff, I want you to comment. Opposite field power. When we saw it years ago when B.J. Upton and Evan Longoria were with the Rays, they were able to abuse that right field porch. And Aaron Judge does it. But you see at times right-handed hitters being able to use that opposite field, letting the ball travel, letting it get deep, taking a really good swing and extending through that side. Junior Caminero has that. He's a guy that can hit the ball and hit it out into the deepest parts. I mean, you can get a couple of cheapies there during the regular season too. I wonder if that changes the approaches for the hitters. I'm excited, man. I'm jacked up for this year, this baseball season. I cannot wait. Also, I am here at Amalie Arena. Let's not forget, I don't know if you guys have seen this on social media recently, but the NHL has been putting out the quarter century teams. And there's a first team and a second team, 3 forwards, 2 defensemen, and a goalie for the first team. Same thing for the second team. The NHL is going to announce the Tampa Bay Lightning's quarter century team a little bit later on today. Don't know exactly what time that's going to be, but if it's going to be here and announced before 2 o'clock, then I'll announce it here on the show. My guess or my picks for the team, for the first team, I'm going to go with Martin St. Louis, Steven Stamkos, and Nikita Kucherov. Defenseman, I'm going to go with Victor Hedman and Ryan McDonough. Goaltender, Andrei Vasilevsky. Second team, I'm going to go with Braden Point, Brad Richards, and Vinny Lecavalier. Defenseman, I'm going to go Dan Boyle and Pavel Kubina. And the goalie, I was going back and forth. Ben Bishop or Nikolai Habibulin. right? Because Bish was good for a while there with the Bolts. But I'm going to have to go with the Boulin Wall because of the Stanley Cup. I mean, it's just the way it goes. So, yeah, my guess, or maybe not my guess, but these are my quarter-century teams for the Tampa Bay Lightning. First team up front, Steven Stamkos, Nikita Kucherov, Martin St. Louis, with Victor Hedman and Ryan McDonough as the defenseman, Andrei Vasilevsky in goal. My second team, Braden Point, with Vinny Lecavalier, Brad Richards, Dan Boyle, and Pavel Kubina, with the goaltender being the Boulin Wall, Nikolai Khabibulin. Thaw saying Marty, Vinny, Stammer, Hetty, Kubina, Vasilevsky. Wow, so you have Vinny over Martin St. Louis. Interesting. I don't know, man, because two-time Cup champion in Cooch, MVP. I don't know. Cooch has got to make that list for me. What say to you guys out there? And we're waiting for Rick Ballou to join us. Rick Ballou going to be joining us from 1010XL up there in Jacksonville. Who makes your team for the Tampa Bay Lightning? Your first team, your second team, 3 forwards, 2 defensemen, and a goalie for the first team, also for the second team as well. Lightning back in action tonight here at Amalie Arena. They take on the Chicago Blackhawks, 7 o'clock puck drop. Of course, you can hear that on 102.5 The Bone and watch it on the FanDuel Sports Network. So, yeah, some really, really good stuff there. The Buccaneers finished up, just had it up here, just finished up their latest interview, 5th interview for their offensive coordinator position. Dave Ragone, you've heard his name bandied about in the National Football League. The one guy that I'm keeping an eye out for, and I was having this conversation with our guy, Jake Asman from the New York Jets, from the Jake Asman Show, who covers the Jets. Nick Caley is that guy. Nick Caley, for me, the tight ends coach, the pass game coordinator for the Rams. Bring him in. I think that's the right guy. A couple of different guys, Marcus Brady, Grant Udinsky, Nate Schillhouse. Those are the other guys that also have been interviewed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So we'll see how that goes. But we are looking at a situation here in the National Football League where even though there are 2 teams left, there's still other big news with coaches and offensive coordinators being announced. Let's flip the script. Let's bring in our guy, Rick Ballou from 1010XL up there in Jacksonville. Rick, thanks so much for joining us, man. I know you're a busy man. There's a lot of things going up there in the Jacksonville area. Continued success, man. You're crushing it up there, buddy.
Yeah, yesterday was interesting, meeting a guy that obviously you're very familiar with in Liam Cohen. His initial address here to the media actually made it in, and it was I thought it was an interesting press conference. They always win the presser. I mean, it's very rare not to, but I thought that he was a little bit nervous. Obviously, he showed that he was excited. It wasn't like one of these deals where it was a rehashed coach who's been through it 3 years ago. Doug Peterson came in here a couple of years after winning a Super Bowl, and it was one of those kind of expected type of press conferences. I thought yesterday with Liam Cohen was totally different.
Yeah, and Rick, when you look at Liam Cohen and the situation with him leaving Tampa Bay for Jacksonville, what was your take? Because I always think it's so, it's so unique and so be able to see things from different perspectives. Obviously, everybody here in Tampa, they can't stand how it went down. They wish he was a little bit more transparent. But was the initial reaction there in Jacksonville like, hey, regardless of what he did to get here, he's our guy. This is one of the guys that we wanted?
Well, I'm very surprised. I still am. I mean, when I had heard, I think it was Wednesday, that he was out, there was no way it was going to happen. Then a few hours later, Trent Baalke was fired. Then I guess he sneaks out in the middle of the night, late Thursday or early Friday, and he's back on the table. I didn't see that coming. Even though it was brought to my attention, I thought that they would go in a different direction. Obviously, it wasn't handled the right way, and I caught a little bit of flack here because I said I thought it was a Bush move to do what he did. But when you triple a guy's pay, even if he's going to get $4.5 million as the coordinator there in Tampa, then all of a sudden you're offering 13, 14 million, whatever in fact it is. It's understandable. Ethically, could he have done it differently? Sure. They're not, answering the phone calls and well over a day from Tampa Bay. And, the flip side of it is I don't know if there's a perfect way to do it. I grew up in Boston, and Michael Hawley's book, Patriot Reign, is one of the great sports books of all time. And, it talks about the first Super Bowl I ever covered back in '96 when, Parcells didn't fly back with the Patriots after they lost to the Packers. And then all that stuff with Bill Belichick. Was he going to get the job? Bill ended up going to New York. Pete Carroll got the job. And then a couple of years later, they announced Bill Belichick to replace Bill Parcells in New York. And a day later, he says, I don't want the job, and ended up being a part of the trade going over to the New England Patriots. So there have been examples of this before. Josh McDaniels has done it.
Right.
It's always going to leave a sore spot on the place that they leave. And, that is the case right now in Tampa.
How excited is the fan base and just people in Jacksonville just being able to possibly unlock what Trevor Lawrence can do to really live up to those lofty expectations that a number one overall pick has?
Well, that's the big deal. I mean, it's been 4 years of wasted talent for Trevor Lawrence. He has one playoff win. We were told that he's a generational talent. I think they paid him too soon. I would have let him play out his 5th year. They paid him a year ago. So now you have all this money, $275 million guaranteed, invested in a guy who's missed 8 games over 2 years, has had 7 different injuries, has had 2 concussions, has had 2 surgeries on his non-throwing shoulder, if you consider the one he had as well coming out of Clemson. My only thought on this, my initial guy was Ben Johnson. He's who I wanted. Liam Cohen, I certainly did a lot of work on. Still an open book. I mean, only 18 games in his career that he has actually called plays. I think that is something that is very intriguing. But the way that I looked at this was get a guy who's going to be with Trevor Lawrence for a long period of time. You don't want a Tampa Bay situation where you lose Canellis because you play well, where you lose Cohen because you play well. I want the head coach to call plays. I want this to be an Andy Reid, Pat Mahomes. I want this to be a Sean Payton with Drew Brees for 15 years, or Sean McVay now with Matthew Stafford. That was my whole approach on this. Get a guy in who can work year after year after year with Trevor Lawrence and watch him evolve. And if you become a good football team and they start plucking away coaches, okay, it hurts, but still the nucleus is in place with Trevor Lawrence and Liam Cohen. So that's what I wanted more than anything. And, I've looked at Tampa's offense. My girlfriend's an Oklahoma graduate, so I watch Baker Mayfield and Tampa either live or on tape every single week. And I love what Liam Cohen did. Jacksonville was so predictable offensively. Everything was out of the shotgun. Even 3rd and 1, they'd run out of a shotgun. It was really dumbfounded. And I'm excited about what I believe Liam Cohen will be able to bring Trevor Lawrence and this football team.
Yeah, his pre-snap motion, fantastic. What he was able to do to some of these tight ends to get them the block that really struggled blocking in years past. Really, really good stuff there. And that's something I don't think anybody in Jacksonville certainly has to worry about. It's kind of weird, Rick. Nowadays, you're getting the coaches and then the GMs follow, where the GM for so many years, that was, everything it trickled down, right? You get your GM, he's the decision maker. Then you come to decide on a head coach. What do you make of this kind of newfound way that it's being done in the NFL? And who do we think that, could be that guy? Because I know Shad came out and said something about trying to have something done by February. Well, the draft will be here before you know it.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, this organization needs a total reboot when it comes to their front office. I don't like hiring the coach before the GM. Maybe it's the old school in me, but to me, you get a general manager, you hire your coach, you allow your coach to get his coordinators and his assistant coaches, and then the general manager becomes responsible for free agency in the NFL draft. Now, Jacksonville's tried that. Shad Khan's been here for 13 years. He's had 3 winning seasons. He's had 1 double-digit win season. That was 10 games. He hired 2 general managers. Hasn't worked out. Dave Caldwell, I remain friends with, still lives here in Jacksonville, even though he works for the Philadelphia Eagles. It just didn't work out with Dave. Trent Baalke took the interim off. Didn't work with Trent. The coaches they've brought in here hasn't worked. So I guess they're going to do things differently now. Considering it hasn't worked, You can make the case that why not do it this way?
Right.
And whenever I raise this with my listeners are like, well, let's hire a coach who picks the GM. Let's hire a coach who picks the players. And I'm like, it's a 39-year-old guy who's never done it before. Okay. I mean, there's a lot of brilliant people in the NFL. Hire these people, bring them in. And, Shad Khan yesterday talking about how he has until February 28th to bring in a general manager. I'm like, you got the Senior Bowl practices going on right now. You got the East-West Shrine Game practices going on right now. You have games Thursday and Saturday. Who's representing Jacksonville? Free agency right around the corner. Major decisions this football team has to make as far as, cutting some veterans with some very high cap figures. Then you got to turn around and get things ready, for the new league year in the middle part of March, and it's every day's going by. So I don't love what's happening now. I do like the names that have been thrown around to come in as the new general manager, but I'm just a little surprised that it's taking this long. I think that's the biggest concern with Shad Khan, who is a brilliant man. He's a very cordial man. I like Shad an awful lot. He's not a great football man, and he needs to surround himself right now with football people. If you look at Jacksonville's staff and compare it to the best teams in the NFL, they are so understaffed. It's amazing. I mean, it's Tony Khan, his son, and it was Trent Baalke, and that's it. Now they've added my buddy Tony Baselli, who I did the Tony Baselli show with going back to 1996. Plus I worked with him on the Jaguars radio network. I love Baselli, but Baselli should be a conduit. He should be a liaison between Shad Khan and the coach, Shad Khan and the general manager. You can't expect Tony Baselli to put things together scouting-wise and all of a sudden make your draft picks. He's never done it before. That's not his expertise. He's a great football man, but he needs to be in the building for that role. So, yeah, this is still a major work in progress. The Jaguars have a lot of things to do.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about you gave me your impression. What's the overall impression of Shad Khan there, from the fan base? I mean, because he's a guy, it doesn't seem like he's, pinching any pennies, willing to spend on practice facilities, new stadiums, getting Urban Meyer and Charlie Strong involved with his son's wrestling promotion. Like, he seems to be, kind of open, but I mean, it's one thing to be open. It's another thing. Like, you got to be able to make sure that the right people are in place to make the football moves, as you alluded to.
Yeah, that's always been my biggest concern with Shad, is that he doesn't have an inner circle. And if he does, he's been very silent about it. I mean, all of these owners have people within the league that they trust, that they can go to if they have to make a major decision. And I just told you basically the brain trust that Shad Khan has had. And there needs to be more. Even though those people are not the final decision makers, you need more opinions. You need more eyes and ears and a voice to say, I think we should be doing this. I think we should be doing that. And there's not enough of that. You mentioned Urban Meyer. I heard from an impeccable source 4 years ago when he was hired. Shad Khan will never say no to a football-related issue. You talk about liquid cash, the man has got it. Look at the amount of money he spent the last several years in free agency. And to credit Urban Meyer, they totally rebuilt their facility. The Miller Electric Center is the best right now in the NFL. You name it, they have it. Urban Meyer asked for the world, and he got it. So it is an incredible facility. It's state of the art, and it's really ahead of its time. And again, Shad Khan is going to spend the money, but I think the problem that he has is that everything he does turns into gold. He's worth $12.2 billion. He still hasn't been able to identify and surround himself with great football people. And that is what he needs to do right now. He's got to find guys that he can trust and guys who aren't afraid to go up to him and give their opinion on what needs to be done with the football team. That has been lacking here in Jacksonville.
Rick, what's the involvement of his son, Tony? I'm a big wrestling guy going back to when I was knee-high to a grasshopper. And, I know they're invested in Fulham as well over. I'm a big Premier League fan as well. What's Tony's involvement? Because I think for like the wrestling fan base, we look at, he gets his pet project here and the wrestling and these big stars. He signs all these guys making millions of dollars, but then you see him with the neck brace at the draft. Like he's a part of this process too for the Jaguars. But I guess the question from the outsiders is, how involved is he?
I love Tony. I mean, Tony's just a blast. He really is. A few years ago in London, I spent like the entire week with him. We flew in from Cincinnati after a loss there and then spent a week in London. And it was a place called the Grove that was kind of away from everything in downtown London, and really got to know Tony very well during that week. And I mean, this guy doesn't sleep. He's a head of analytics, which I'm not a huge fan of football related. I mean, just look at all these chasing points early with 2-point conversions we've seen recently in the NFL. But whether you like it or not, it's a big part of today's game. So he heads up that department. Absolutely, he's involved with what's going on soccer-wise at Fulham, and had a chance to go to a game out there as well. It's pretty neat. I'm really not a soccer guy, but I enjoyed it. And then obviously he's running the everything that's involved with his wrestling franchise. His opinion matters. It does. And I know that during the Caldwell Coughlin situation, there was a difference in opinion that Tony Khan is a smart guy, but is he too involved in what this football team is trying to do? He was Trent Baalke's absolutely favorite guy. I mean, that's the only reason why Trent Baalke stuck around here as long as he did, is because Tony Khan absolutely admired Trent Baalke and thought he was a fantastic guy. The other side of it is we honestly just don't know. I mean, I'd love to be able to sit here and say, yeah, Tony Khan's responsible for day 3 picks and 6th and 7th round picks and undrafted free agents, but has very little say, on Thursday night and Friday night. It's been kind of, mass confusion as trying to figure out everything that's going on. Because again, when I look at the Khans, brilliant business people, but certainly not the best football people. Now, I think Tony Khan knows a lot more than his dad does, because he absolutely is involved with the football team, analytically speaking. And he has his dad's ear. Again, the only 2 people who have had Shad Khan's ear over the last several years is Tony Khan and Trent Baalke.
Rick, before I let you go, I want to ask you, what is the Jacksonville kind of, all right, this is what we got to do to be competitive in 2025? Because you look at the division, we know Houston, the bee's knees with CJ Stroud, but you look at the Colts, okay, you kind of have an idea of what Steichen and Anthony Richardson are, and then the Titans seem to be towards the bottom end. But like, what about the Jags? Like, when they're looking at it, all right, you got Brian Thomas, you got some good pieces. Like, in order for them to take a step forward, what do they have to do to this roster?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of different things that factor into that. First off, you mentioned it's a very weak division. There's no reason why they can't flip the switch and turn around. Right. A lot of people think that CJ Stroud dropped off in his second year. And obviously we saw the firing of Bobby Slowick just the other day. So Houston right now is in a little bit of turmoil, and it feels like they don't know what they're doing. Even at quarterback in both Tennessee and Indianapolis. I think the first thing that needs to be considered here in Jacksonville, and it's the one thing that Liam Cohen said yesterday that almost made me fall off my chair, is he was asked, what is the most excited thing that you are about coming here and coaching in Jacksonville? And he said leadership. And I was like, whoa. It's like, there's no leaders on this football team. This is and to me, the leaders have always been in the ditch, particularly the offensive line. That is the identity of a great football team, is a tough offensive line. The teams here in the 90s, when they went to 2 AFC championship games in 96 and 99, it was Leon Searcy and Tony Baselli and Dave Weidel and that great offensive line. They were dominant in the locker room. They weren't running into the training room when the reporters came in, okay? This offensive line doesn't have a voice. It hasn't had a voice in a very long period of time. So we said leadership. Now, if you win, can all of a sudden leaders emerge? I've seen the maturation process in 4 years of Trevor Lawrence. Josh Hines-Allen, Foye Oluokun, a little bit more lead by example as opposed to being very vocal. But I think that's a big part of it. The second is that they have to get better in the interior offensive line. They're okay at tackle with Harrison and Walker. They're okay at edge with Walker and Hines-Allen. But then you look at the interior offensive line and the interior defensive line, that is very soft. That is very weak. And that is something that he said several times yesterday, alluding about physical football. And I'm aware, Tampa, even though, you've won 3 straight divisional titles, What'd you rush for? Just over 80 yards 2 years ago. He comes in, brings you to 150 yards a game, rushing. Jacksonville has some talented backs. They do. They just have the soft interior offensive line. So the first thing you need to do is run and stop the run. And if you can do that, then that'll open things up a little bit more for Trevor Lawrence. So for me, that's the biggest thing that needs to be fixed, the physical style of play, particularly in the ditch, and then finding a way to successfully run the football. The last 5 games of the year, Jacksonville averaged 69 yards a game rushing. You can't win in this league if you can't run the football. And that's what he's going to be forced with. And, you know, I hope Jacksonville's got great draft capital. They also have a lot of money to spend. And everyone's like, defense, defense, defense. And I just scream and I yell. I'm like, you're crazy. You spent all this money on Trevor Lawrence. Fix your offense. Fix your offensive line. Every team can't be perfect. No one is. But do what you hopefully can do best, and that is build around Trevor Lawrence. You want to find out if Trevor Lawrence can actually play or not. And you don't want to put all your resources in defense and have a patchwork offensive line and say, yeah, maybe we should have done something with the offensive line. There goes year 5, and Trevor didn't, take us to where people believe they should be. So if I had any say, it would be fix that offensive line, get a number 2 wide receiver, and put most of my funds on the offense.
Yeah, you got that right. The best teams in the NFL build from the inside out. And when you do that, man, you can even make up for some of the lack of skill and maybe some injuries like we've seen from teams around the league. You may lose a wide out or two for a couple of weeks, but if you're strong in the interior, that helps out in a big way. If you want to be smarter, listening to Jacksonville Radio, check out Into the Night. Our guy, Rick Ballou, 1010 XL, 92.5 FM. Working on the Jaguars radio broadcast, FSU graduate, does a little bit of everything. Rick, thanks, man. You enlightened the hell out of me, man, and I appreciate it. And continued success. I always try to pop in and listen to different radio stations around the country, especially at night when I get some time, and you crush it, man. So keep up the great work, and have a great rest of your week.
All right, Jay. Take care. Thank you, man.
You got it, buddy. Rick Ballou, man. Woo, woo. That is what I'm talking about. This is what we do here on the Jay Recher podcast. With Tampa perspective, Tampa side. No, you got to hear from everybody. Rick is all over it. And listen, we've talked about this a lot when it comes to the NFL. Building from the inside out, right? That's part of the reason why the Buccaneers invested that first-round pick last year to Graham Barton, and why they were so focused on, we got to make sure our guards are right. Because the tackles look good with, Tristan Wirfs and Luke Edeke. You got Cody Mauch now coming up in year 3. Ben Bredesen, a free agent. Do you bring him back there? Do you put somebody else? Do you invest a draft pick there? Do you bring in another veteran? But the interior of your offensive line helps you run the football. As Rick alluded to there, the Buccaneers go from 32nd in the league the last 2 years to 4th. Your interior defensive line, even when you don't have a great pass rush. And we've seen that with the Buccaneers really struggling to have a guy on the outside being able to get to the passer. But interior, Vita Vea and Kalijah Kancey wreaking havoc on opposing offenses and offensive lines. Like, there is a way. There is a way to be successful in the National Football League, but there are common themes, there are common threads amongst those that are successful. And that interior, that's what you got to work on. That is what you have to focus on if you're going to be successful in this league, day in, day out, year in, year out. And also, as I just alluded to with Rick, that is how you go through and be able to sustain success through injury and sustain success when things aren't going so well, because you can lose a Mike Evans. You can lose a Chris Godwin. You kind of hold down the fort. Yeah, you may lose some games, but you're able to right the ship and bring everything back and start heading in the right direction if you have a good foundation, if you have good players in the middle. I thought it was very interesting what he had to say about leadership with Liam Cohen, and that's the thing that excited him and drew him to the Jacksonville Jaguars, is the leadership. And then you heard it from Rick. This team doesn't have any leaders on the offensive side of the ball. There you go. Can't wait to see how that unfolds. The Jacksonville Jaguars, the story, the coaching, Shah Khan not really putting any onus on, we'll get a GM sometime in February, the end of February. Okay. I mean, we have media people at the Shrine Bowl, East-West Shrine Bowl, the Senior Bowl, all these different things. And there's so many different teams out there, the conversations that they have. Like, if people in the media are doing it, you think the teams are doing it as well. I just don't see how You look at the organization that you left with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now you look at the organization that you're with the Jacksonville Jaguars and think you may be in a better spot when it comes to where your position is and when you eat and what it says on your check at the end of every week. But as far as a better organization ran totally from top to bottom, it's no competition. It's Bucs here and Jaguars somewhere down there. All right, that's going to wrap it up for me today here at Amalie Arena. So grateful for the Tampa Bay Lightning to be able to let me do my show here today and talk all sports with you. A big thank you to everybody that joined us on the program today, including Chris Russell from Team 980 up there in D.C., Colleen Wright from the Tampa Bay Times, as well as Joe Urso from UT Baseball, season opener Friday night, and, of course, Rick Ballou, 1010XL there in Jacksonville. Follow me on all social media platforms at JRetro. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Every like, every subscription, every share, it helps more than you know. And I can't stress to you how grateful I am to have the backing of everybody here in the Tampa Bay area. Over 1,000 subscribers in pretty much just under 2 months. So thank you all for that. Tomorrow, we have Eric Erlinson joining us from lightninginsider.com, joining us at 1 o'clock. And, of course, I got some other irons in the fire to see who else we can talk to right here on the Jay Recher podcast. Thank you to Thaw and David Terry. Go Bolts. Again, I'll be here at Amalie Arena, so make sure you follow me on socials, and hopefully the Bolts can win. And I'll talk to Patrick Moon tonight about Ryan McDonough and Jeff Taylor. Thank you. Appreciate everybody. We'll see you tomorrow at noon. I'll be back home for that one right here on the Jay Recher podcast.